So then guys, in 2024, we have quite a lineup of MacBooks. We have everything from the M3 MacBook Air all the way up to the top line M4 Max MacBook Pro. And today I'm going to try my best to help you out to decide which of these MacBooks and also the M4 MacBook Pro, what I can't fit on this table here because just don't have enough space, is right for your needs. So whether this is you are a student, whether that you are a pro creator, whether that you're a photographer, whether you're a developer, whether you're going to a university or college to do studies, or you're just sitting at home watching TV and also just wanting to surf the web too. So I'm going to try my best here to work it out for you, but I'm also going to do some tests to actually show you the main differences and also tell you why I think each one of these tests are important for all different kind of users' needs out there. Now, one thing I'm just going to quickly say is that all the things that you're seeing here, all the MacBooks, they're all the baseline versions and also the smallest MacBooks of their actual ones. So obviously there is the 15-inch MacBook Air and the 16.2-inch MacBook Pros, but to keep it fair, I've decided to go with the baseline version. So we have the lowest amount of CPU cores and GPU cores that we can get in the 16GB version here, and the same one here with the M4 Max, that we've got the 32-core GPU, and then we've got the likes of the 14-core CPU inside of it. And like I said, the baseline for the M4 and also the M4 Pro, including the lowest amount of RAMs that you can buy out there to keep everything nice and fair. But without further ado then guys, let's get started then and let's have a look then at the speeds of the actual SSDs or NAND chips inside. So starting out with the M3 256GB, this is the one that you find in the likes of the MacBook Air. We can see that the read speed is about 2875, and then you can see here with the M4 MacBook Pro is a little bit quicker there in obviously its read speeds at 2951, but then we jump up a tier with the M4 Pro with that 512GB, even though it's the same amount as the M4, but the M4 Pro is definitely faster at 4988, and then even faster than that is the M4 Max with its read speed at 5765, which is really impressive to see. But then for the actual write speeds, the M3 is obviously the slowest in this MacBook Air, 2112, and then it goes up to 3078, then 4281 on the M4 Pro, and then finally the M4 Max, it goes up to 8329. Now, the first thing I'm going to say right here is that the MacBook Air is no slouch out there. If you own one of these right now, the M3 or the M2 or the M1, these are pretty quick, even with their sort of slower SSDs compared to, say, like an M4 Max that we have here. And this is because what this is designed for, for the user's actual needs. So, if you are going to be at home just browsing the web and things like this, the speed, the read and write speeds is going to be more than enough for you inside of this MacBook. And then, say, the likes of the M4 MacBook Pro, it's sort of, standing up into kind of semi-pro sort of territory. So that's why it's a bit faster there. And then again, even more with the M4 Pro. And then finally, the M4 Max is the fastest of them all. Because obviously, if you're doing lots of sort of video editing and let's say you're exporting and importing and things like this with multiple sort of 8K kind of streams, say on this one, then obviously you need that faster sort of speeds. But let's say you've only got one or two 8K streams and 4K streams as well, then obviously the M4 Pro is going to be better for you. And then finally the M4, if you've just got a couple of 4K kind of streams coming in, then obviously that's going to be more than enough to sort of disk speeds with that. But moving on though, let's now have a look then at the actual speeds then of the actual CPUs. And again, I will remind you, these are the baseline versions. So let's have a look right here with Geekbench 6. So we can see then the M3 with its single core performance is the slowest one of them all. So it's 3079. Then we're going up to another generation with the M4, what was 3864. 3892, then 3906 for the M4 Max. They're very, very similar, and that's what we normally get here. But what you're actually seeing here is the multi-core performance, what a lot of people like to look at. And obviously, we're going up from 8-core sort of CPU with the M3 to 10-core M4, and then 12-core M4 Pro, and then obviously the 14-core M4 Max. These, like I said, are all the baseline versions, but you can see the score differences here. We're getting almost 12,000 in multi-core performance on the M3, which is very impressive still. And then the M4, obviously that got 15,288. M4 Pro got 20,132 with that 12 core. And then the 14 core version of the M4 Max, that got 23,202. And very similar to like the actual SSD kind of sort of thing, the M3 inside of this MacBook Air is going to be more than enough for most people out there. Even if, say, you're like a student just studying, you're just doing some Word documents, some Excel, maybe you're making a presentation, maybe there's one kind of specialist app what you have to use, like in law or something like this, I don't know, and then you need to use that, but it's not really fully utilizing all the graphics and things like this, or pushing out the processor, then the MacBook Air is probably going to be more than enough for you. And then I would say like the M4 is probably more staged for somebody a little bit more who needs a bit more kind of bits and pieces. Maybe that you're starting to be a developer out there, for example, getting started with that. Maybe you're starting to get into doing videos and things like this. Then this is going to be more sort of targeted, the M4 MacBook Pro for you. But obviously if you are going to do a master's degree, or maybe you're actually doing it a bit more as a profession, the M4 Pro is definitely be the right machine for you. And then obviously if you are doing this day-to-day kind of life, always fiddling around with videos, photos, professional apps, art apps, you name it, fiddling around with raw kind of formats all the time, then the M4 Max is definitely going to be the right one for you, just at least in CPU power. And we can even see the same results here, very similar to what we got in Cinebench 2024 with the single and multi-core scores. We can see that we were getting with the M3, we got a single core score of 138, then the M4 and the M4 Pro and the M4 Max, you can see 175, 177, 178, very similar kind of single core sort of speeds, because they've got a similar kind of sort of cores inside of them for the actual single ones. But then obviously the multi-core score, this is where the differences actually happen. So the M3 had an 8 core, and up to the M4 you can see there's a good jump there with the 10 core inside of that to 975. Then the M4 Pro an additional 2 more cores again, and this really does jump out ahead. And the main reason why this jumps out ahead is because the M4 Pro has more performance cores than it does have efficiency cores, like with the M4 instead. The M4 has, for example, has a total of 4 performance cores and has 6 efficiency cores, whereas the M4 Pro, what we've actually got inside of that, we have 2 efficiency cores and we actually have 10 performance cores. And then you can probably guess it here with the M4 Max, we're even very similar there. We've actually got, if I believe I'm right here, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I know it's similar to this, we've actually got 12 performance cores and 2 efficiency cores inside of that M4 Max. And you can see where, I think with Cinebench here, where you can actually see that leap where things change, where obviously the M3 MacBook Air, the M4 MacBook Pro, they're more designed for the other end of the scale, whereas when we go into Pro and Max, Apple have optimized their sort of CPUs to have more performance cores inside it, because they know that these are more designed for more professionals, whereas at the M4 and the M3, not so much. You can still use them, obviously, as a professional, but you get the idea here. This is what they're sort of designing this for. But moving on from this then, let's have a look then at graphics cores. And again, it's the baseline versions. And first of all, let's have a look then at Geekbench 6 metal scores. We can see that the M3 with the 10 core inside of that got a total score of 41,065, and then the M4 also has a 10 core GPU inside of it. Obviously it's a better, different kind of GPU now with the 10 cores. So that is getting faster clock speeds out there. So we're getting 58,079, but then you can see the big jump up ahead here again. With the M4 Pro 16 core, we've now got 99,853, and then even the M4 Max, double the amount of cores in the M4 Pro for the baseline. It's 158,390. And I think, again, this is where I'm saying you can begin to see that difference here, that obviously if you're sitting at home or, you're going to be dabbing around, just going on the internet, things like this, studying and whatnot, nothing using kind of specific graphical kind of apps out there, the M3 and the M4 MacBook Pro and the M3 MacBook Air is going to be more than enough for you out there. It's only when you need to really start utilizing those kind of sort of more pro creative kind of apps out there, you are going to need that kind of more sort of power in GPU and things like this. And that's why the M4 Pro and the M4 Max has that offering there. And that's why we have that sort of big leap there where it jumps up. But let's have a look then at another score right here. And this is the 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme Unlimited graphics scores. Very similar sort of thing what we just spoke about, the M3 and the M4, the 10 core. You can see how close those scores are together there. But then when we jump up into the M4 Pro with the 16 cores, you know, we're getting about 50% or almost double the amount of what we've got the M3, because obviously this is more of a pro machine out there. And then obviously the M4 Max would double the amount of cores inside of it than the M4 Pro. Then yeah, you can see why the score here is now 26,350. So I won't fully repeat myself what I've just said before. You can begin to see the clearer picture here that the M4 Pro and the M4 Max is more designed for kind of creators and sort of, you know, hardcore developers out there using more graphics sort of abilities, whereas the M4 MacBook Pro and the M3 MacBook Air, not so much. Nothing wrong with that, but obviously if you don't need to utilize those extra cores, there's no point buying yourself an M4 Pro and M4 Max if you're not going to use those kind of graphics intense kind of bits and pieces. There's no point spending out that extra cash out there. But then next of all, let's move on to say video editing. And let's say that you had a Final Cut sort of project out there, and that you made one for 10-minute long, and that you wanted to export this in HEVC. And obviously HEVC is one of the popular sort of formats out there, what a lot of you guys use. Let's have a look at the scores then here. So we can see all the export speeds here in seconds, the total amount of seconds it took. And starting out with the M3, the 8 core, it took 256 seconds. The M4, you know, again, 10 core version, 248 seconds, a little less there. But then the M4 Pro with the 12 core inside, about 231, definitely a bit more of a difference there. But the M4 Max with the 14 core, you know, that was 128 seconds. And the main reason behind that is because we've actually got two media encoders and decoders inside of the M4 Max. The likes of the M3, the M4, and the M4 Pro only have one video encoder and decoder inside of it. So when you have twice as many, you can almost get twice the amount of speed. Not exactly the twice, but you get me. You're running, you know, your actual sort of export through two of those, and that makes a huge difference there. But obviously, you know, if you are going to be doing something very similar, again, we've seen the difference between the M4 and the M3. There's not much in it, but then obviously if you're stepping it up to the M4 Pro, it's starting to make a bit of difference. But if you really want the best kind of in sort of export kind of speeds, especially like I said, if you're going to be fiddling around with 8K kind of video streams and things like this, you will need two of them, you know, encoders and decoders, because it's really going to help you out there. That's why the likes of the M4 Max has that inside of it, because it knows that you're going to be fiddling around with multiple different sort of streams where you wouldn't probably be doing that as much, say, on an M3 MacBook Air. Now, I did dab into a bit of gaming, and I tested out Rise of the Tomb Raider, what is native actually on the MacBook Pro. Obviously, it does use Rosetta to do that. But let's have a look then to see what the frames per second that we were getting on these MacBook Pros when I tested out this game. Well, as you can see, we're testing this on the high preset out there, and we set the resolution exactly the same on all four of the MacBooks at 1920 by 1200. And we can see that the M3 with a 10-core GPU gave us 64 frames per second on average on the benchmark tool in there, and then the M4 gave us 72, a bit better there because obviously, you know, the 10 core in that, the GPU, they're a bit more fast sort of clock speed, a bit more better and everything. And then the M4 Pro, well, this is where you begin to see the difference now. The 16 core jumped it up to 102 frames per second, and then with the M4 Max with the 32 core GPU, that pushed it all the way up to 144 frames per second. Now, I could test out more games, but I'm not going to do that. It was just more to show you here that if we ran the exact same test on all of these MacBooks, what we could get. Obviously, I know I could have set it up the resolution to be higher and things like this, and maybe change the presets to be even higher again on all of them and push out the M4 Max to its full potential. But I wanted to keep this test fair to see what the difference is if we did the same exact test on all of the MacBooks that you can see right here. So next of all then, what about heat inside of the MacBook Pros? How hot do they get, and then how do those fans kick in? Well, I am going to say this, that all of the MacBooks do get quite a bit toasty, but do remember that ARM chips can get hotter than the likes of x86. And if you don't know what I mean by that, I'm talking like the traditional kind of sort of Intel sort of chips up to like a year or two ago, the kind of ones like that, and AMD, you know, if you start pushing them up to say 100 degrees or something like this, they're not going going to do well at all. But with ARM chips, you know, if you push them to be even hotter, they can actually still survive. Probably not the best thing to actually do, but at least actually your computer's not going to actually melt or anything like that. But let's have a look then and see how hot these start getting. So the M3 with the 8 core, that got up to 106 degrees out here, and it was really, really hot. But obviously there is no fan inside of a MacBook Air. So yeah, no surprises here. It got to 106 degrees, and then I'm guessing it started to throttle down doing the Cinebench CPU multi-core sort of score test here, because obviously it was trying to not get any much hotter or any hotter than it was right now. And then the M4 with the 10 core, the fans were blowing inside, but it was going around about 101 and that one. And then the M4 Pro, well, this one was getting 95 degrees. And remember, with the M4 Pro and the M4 Max, we actually have 2 fans inside of these MacBook Pros, whereas the M4 only has 1 fan. So maybe this is why it was a little bit cooler, because those fans were really pushing the air in to try to keep it cool, but still got to 95. And then the M4 Max, well, that got 97, because obviously it's a more beefier kind of chip. You still got those 2 fans, but it was also getting quite hot too. But like I say, guys, generally speaking, you know, if you are going to be pushing your MacBooks to those limits, do expect throttling and things like this. And also do expect it to get quite toasty and the fans to kick in to get noisy. Whereas the MacBook Air, this is the one advantage it has. It won't make a single noise if you do that. And at the end of the day, the MacBook Air is not designed to be pushed to those kind of levels out there. So unless you do something like what I just did there, benchmark, or if you actually install a Pro app, what should be far beyond what it's capable of, even though it can probably run it, and it should be running on something like one of these 2 machines, yeah, you are going to get quite hot and toasty, and you're going to throttle, so that means things are going to slow down on it. So just be aware of that. But the next thing that you guys probably want to know then is, what about battery life? What kind of battery life do we get on these MacBooks, from the MacBook Air all the way up to the 14-inch M4 Max? Well, again, like I said, I've chosen the smallest MacBooks out there with the actual sort of standard batteries inside them, and let's have a look at the scores right here. So what I did was I ran Cinebench 2024 GPU test, did 30-minute loops, kept on running those loops until literally the batteries died from 100% battery all the way down to dead. So you can see here that the M3, that 13.6-inch model, it could do this test for just over 2, it did actually, I remember it. So I think I only had like about 4% left when I had to run it the second time. So yeah, that was quite interesting to see. But you can see it got 71 sort of minutes here in total. And then the M4, it took 86 minutes. It has definitely the best battery life, because obviously it's the same battery what's inside the M4 Pro and the M4 Max, 14.2-inch, but obviously it doesn't suck up as much power. But the M4 Pro there, you know, same sort of thing like the M3 MacBook Air. It did it in 73 minutes. That's how long the battery lasted. Just keep on running this loop test. And then the M4 Max, because it's the most powerful out there, it did it in 67 minutes until the battery fully died out there. And again, I think this is one of those positives, that with the MacBook Air, as much as I pushed it out as far as I could just then, you know, generally speaking, you're not going to do that, or you shouldn't be doing that really with those kind of sort of tests. So the battery life is going to be brilliant for most people out there. Obviously, the best battery life is the M4 MacBook 14.2-inch, because we have the M4. It's not a Pro or a Max. We have the chunkiest size of that MacBook Pro, and then obviously the battery's bigger, so that's why that lasts the longest. But then we start to see it going down bit by bit by bit with the M4 Pro and the M4 Max, because obviously they got far more powerful sort of Apple silicon chips inside of them, you know, with the CPU, GPU, neural engines, encoders, decoders, you know, all of those bits and pieces going on inside of these. That is why, you know, the battery life doesn't last as long as, say, the likes of an M4 MacBook Pro. But you get the idea here that you probably wouldn't be doing these kind of tests all the time. It was just to showcase to you the sort of differences here. But I would generally say that the battery lives are more than enough for most people and their needs out there. But in conclusion then, guys, to wrap up this video, what I'm going to say is, again, if you are just getting started out, or you're going to be somebody sitting at home or just doing studies, going as a student, just writing notes and things like this, not using really any kind of pro kind of apps, this MacBook Air is going to be more than enough for you. In fact, I probably would say this is the MacBook. It's the most popular one, or the most one that most people should be buying out there. And then probably the next most popular one probably would be the M4 MacBook Pro. If you want to have that kind of treading into kind of pro sort of area, going off to college, maybe you are going to start doing a bit of photography, a bit of videoing, you know, things like this on a weekly sort of basis, then that's the sort of device I would aim for that. If you are kind of doing video editing, photo editing quite often, more than a couple of times a week, then the M4 Pro, again, I would say is more than enough for you. I wouldn't be getting an M4 Pro for sitting at home watching TV and sorting out your vacation on it. It's not the right device for you. But then the M4 Max, you know, the best MacBook Pro out there. If you are constantly fiddling around with 4K, 8K, raw kind of videos and things like this, pulling in media all the time, daily, then the M4 Max is definitely the device for you there. But really, guys, I hope this video has helped you out here in deciding which MacBook is best for your needs. And on that same note too, it's time to wrap up this video. So if you haven't been enjoying watching it, please do press the like button. And also, if you want to hear the latest Apple news, reviews, and comparisons like we've done today, make sure you subscribe to the channel and also hit that notification bell. Until next time, guys, I'll see you really soon. Take care. Bye-bye.